Every time I hear Enzo's voice, it's my primary, no matter what I'm doing, to listen to what his voice. Enzo's my son. And I can hear just a hint of him and it's like, squirrel, you know, because you want to, like, it's high alert. Look at this thing. I don't know, we haven't done an update on this ever, right? This was never a thing. Okay. So this is the 66 black Bronco that we've had. This is a really badass client and a special car. There's a lot of vehicles that we have in the stable that you'd want to have, but this is like the #1 vehicle I think I'd want out of all of them. Not for a monetary value, but just for the spirit of driving and the experience. I don't like convertibles or soft tops or anything, but it's still so good when you're driving it on the freeway or the street. It's something about this is good in a way where I'd want to keep it. But this client, this is one of these builds where it's been going on for 2 years and it's not a 2-year workload. It is a, hey, can I bring my Bronco in? It's already got a Whipple-supercharged Coyote with a 6-speed. Can you do good suspension on it? What is good suspension? Shave the frame, plate all of the areas where suspension's gonna go on. So I would say 70% of the frame with 125 thickness chromoly, TIG weld all that. So overlays, bump stops, coilovers, front and rear 4-link, triangulated 4-link rear, Panhard 4-link front. You know, pull all the axles out, put tabs on them, like do this thing up as much as you could for a street truck. Is this a super capable desert truck? Probably not, but would it do more than any Raptor or anything? Of course. 2.5-inch coilovers front and rear, 2.5-inch bump stops, shorty bump stops front and rear. Finned reservoirs with compression adjusters. No sway bars. The thing is, it's not a ton of up travel in this thing. So when you think, oh, it's short and sketchy, it's definitely short and sketchy, but it's predictable short and sketchy. It is extremely fast. We can start it and I can at least rev it for you, but right now we're waiting on driveline. And you want to just, the way this drives is it does have body roll, but the bump stops act as a sway bar. So when you start to turn in, leans a little bit, body roll, right to the point where you start to get uncomfortable and then it hooks because it sets onto the bump stop. The bump stop's got enough nitrogen in there where it's just sitting there. So it haunches and then it hooks and it doesn't go past that. Once you get used to that, the driving experience is fucking amazing. What I was saying is started off with the frame off on this thing. And then, you know, it's tricky with clients and we've done this a lot. I guess you call it a change order or an addition. Then it goes, awesome. What else do you think it needs? And that's like a dangerous question because then I'm going to co-sign on stuff. Bumper treatments. You know, the other thing was we started the dash. I said I did a dash in this other silver Bronco, a little lower of a level. You know, and the client's like, can you do that? Yep, I can do that. So when we do a dash and then we do storage boxes, center console, the seats look out of place. Let's add the seats. It's like, you could have done this in a more efficient, collective way if you started a build and a plan for the project from the start, but sometimes that's how it goes. And at the end of the day, what I'm into is just getting the best end result, period. And if we have to do a step backwards, then it is what it is to get that final result. So this thing went really backwards. It started good with the foundation. We got frame off, did all the suspension, did all the geometry for the link, did all the exhaust, dressed the bumpers, and then we added the dash the center console, the storage boxes, added the seats, and then the last thing that was here was a cage. And the cage was like just the last hindrance on this thing where, you know, it's like, well, what else does it need? And I look at it and I'm totally good to give the car back at that point. Go, well, the only thing that's holding it back is the cage. The cage is just this janky bolt-on, weird radius, weird tube layout, non-functional deal. So that was like the last hit we did, is this big 2-inch cage, all 120 wall, TIG welded, radial gussets. It's got badass grab handles, and I know we can like shoot B-roll on this thing, but a lot of our signature stuff is added into here. And if you start looking at the flow of the interior itself, everything does what it's supposed to. Finish the cage. Then he sends me a picture. What do you think about this? And it's a soft top. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, the number one thing I don't like with soft tops, if we were gonna do a soft top, is the snap buttons and the tension it puts on things, where it looks corny. It looks like an addition. So what is missing right now is a sub-assembly that we have on here that's a soft top, but it's a wraparound. It's sunk lower into here. It's built so, you know, he can take this thing on and off the soft top with his wife or something. It's on quick disconnect or quick release pins. That's at powder coat. When it comes back from powder coat, we're just gonna bring the Bronco just like this with unfinished stuff, because we have a window at the upholstery shop for them to sew this canvas. And the way it's gonna get sewn is it's gonna wrap, it's gonna pull down on here so that this assembly goes right. It's got tabs here, and then it runs right at this window line across, and then it actually comes out and it has a little bit of a bill. You know, like we draw off, a lot of our cars have these bills on the back of the cab. So the frame has this bill. So the canvas will be all tensioned and the cage will show through, but there won't be some bullshit snap buttons or like a bunch of tabs. It'll just be something clean. When this is powder coated, you will see just the pickups here, like these bosses, but it is what it is. I mean, that's a very minimal detail. I think what we want to do is start with what I talked about, frame off. So we had to engineer all the pivots. It's better to show you the guts like this. All the pivots, like you can see how the front and the rear pivot is all integrated into the same bracketry. The way we started that first is real old school. Scaled it down, ran it on paper, did all the geometry, checked all the pinion angles on paper, and then blew that back up to scale, figured out where the points needed to be, and then built the brackets. Something else you can see is the exhaust. This is a Cookcraft muffler setup. I love these things. They're a great detail. And they're very suppressing on sound. This thing is super loud. So we didn't have mufflers in here originally, and it was fucking crazy. So now we have the mufflers, X-pipe. You can see it goes out. It goes on the sides of the fuel tank out there, and I'll get back there and catch up. But while we're under here, we'll check everything out. We redid a lot of the plumbing. You can see the rear coilover mounts. You can see what I'm talking about with the bump stops. So they're at a point where they engage 2.5 inches into the travel, the bump stops on the nylon and on the pad. All the hardware in here is all 12 point. All the fuel lines and everything are all nice crimp fittings. There's no push lock stuff. All Brown & Miller. While we're here too, the bumper. So this is the original bumper, but it was very crude and squared off. What we ended up doing is doing like a nip tuck on this thing and kind of getting plastic surgery into it. It also protruded all the way across. So all this cutout in here is to lay in LP6s. You know, the safety wire and the 12 points are just kind of a classic detail that keeps like a race functional inspired thing going. And it's actually functional because this is just into a threaded portion. It's not captured by a nut on the backside, so the safety wire holds these guys from not backing out. Same with these end treatments. All that cap plate on there is all welded and blended. So it conforms to what the fenders want versus just having some crude shape coming out here. Everything that can come off the truck besides the axles has been powder coated. But everything's super tidy. That's a bolt-on strike pad, the gloss piece you can see right there, for the bump to hit. But it's pretty well gone through. Let's go to the rear. I think one of my favorite details on this thing is the exits. There's a great opportunity on here. Again, this bumper, it used to be about 1.5 inches out, so we tucked it in, and then we nipped all the sides to get a shape that's complementary to what the car wants. But you know, these exits, there was just such an opportunity, and I love taking opportunities for exhaust exits. Same with this. There was not a notch in the bumper here. This was a straight pass-through that was just at sea level here, so we lowered the deck height, and then we added a functional step in here, which also just breaks up all of the satin, and it pulls some of the gloss black from the exterior of the body down into here. I was gonna get back here and show you the exhaust again. So 3.5, double limit straps, fend reservoirs, service loop for the calipers. What I mean by service loop is a lot of times if you do a really tight brake line on your calipers, when you go to service your brakes, you're in a weird deficit of what to do with them because they're too tight and you need to be able to hang them somewhere, or you need to be able to pull your rotors off, service your hubs, etc. So what that does is you cut that zip tie, and then you can hang these brakes, the caliper, somewhere where it's out of the way for what you're doing and for your workspace. Redid all the plumbing. See all our pivots up there. Other details while I have the camera. It's just piggybacking off what we had, right? So like the carpet and stuff was in here, but you know, all the dash, all this is aluminum. It's all built in a modular way. So, you know, sometimes I've stressed not having hardware. With this, I wanted to use hardware as a detail. And you know, it's complementary for all the mesh and for all the face plates. All this stuff is done by hand. And then under here is aluminum. So it's aluminum plus 1/8 inch of foam, so it's soft. You know, one of the things I see on some cars is they wrap the steel or aluminum dash, but they don't put foam in it, and so it doesn't have this soft feeling, and it's more of a harder edge. And really, my perspective with interior is you want it to feel soft. Obviously, this is padded, and that's also foam. I shaped all the surfaces in here, cut this out, and I gave it to the upholstery guy to cover. So there's 12 volt in here. This is a full powder coated box in here. It's probably dirty. And then the levers are also relocated. So one of the things you'll notice with most Broncos is they have to have the transfer case levers somewhere. And that was just such a detail that I didn't want to put in here. It was not complimentary to anything. So relocated the actual shifter under here, and then manipulated the shape of the levers so they would operate on a vertical. And they'd be buried in there. This is also one of our details that we've added. And you know, we obviously need to repowder coat this again, and that's fine. The service lights are something we added, or the map lights. But these structural handles, you know, they go so well with our design language, and it matches everything. If you start looking at all the shapes as a whole with this car, you can pick up on this. And this is 1/8 inch chromoly with a cap plate, and then this is 3/4 inch chromoly too with a roll and a bend in it. And it's built to favor your hand position getting in the car, right? So that's me to get in. And there's something just wholesome about that, you know, it just shows care put into the car when you're entering and exiting. All of these switches, the factory switches, they were just in a different orientation, so I just needed to put this in a stylized way that made sense and it felt kind of factory. It wasn't too extreme or modern. And then these storage boxes are the same kind of deal. We wanted to just have some kind of filler there that made sense. And it still uses that two-tone where there's aluminum tied in with upholstery. And then these seats. These are super comfy. They're low backs and they kind of have a retro vibe. And they match, you know, so it's just 4 low backs. Nothing crazy. This whole thing as a package has been a good design experience and not really a challenge, but just a good exercise. Thinking of what we want to do next year. I mean, I think the next move is once we get this back from upholstery, like I talked about, then we'll want to drive it, start it, go rip it on the street, because the experience this gives you is something very different from just the big heavy pre-runners. It's extremely fast. I am sure it's somewhere 550 to 600 to the wheels with a six-speed transmission. So it starts and it doesn't stop. And you know, being a Ford motor with a blower, it revs out crazy. So I think that's gonna be it.